Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Gallegos, and today I'll be presenting my senior project titled Jumping on the Wings of Change, Developing an Inclusive Marketing Campaign for EVA Air. Before we move on, I'd like to pose a question to the audience. Please take a moment to ponder this. Have you ever seen any airlines advertising diversity? It may be difficult to recall a specific instance in which an airline has openly shown support for a particular minority group. Most airlines, like other companies, focus on appealing to a wider audience, but I'd like to give you one example. In May of 2019, Cathay Pacific replaced their slogan, "Life Well Traveled," with "Move Beyond." And with this slogan came a series of advertisement prints and videos to promote this new message. One goal of the rebranding campaign was to highlight the airline's attitude towards diversity. And this advertisement here is a clear statement that Cathay Pacific supports same-sex couples and was displayed in various locations around Hong Kong. However, two particularly large organizations in Hong Kong refused permission to show this advertisement. One was the Hong Kong Mass Transit Railway, or the MTR, and the other was the Airport Authority Hong Kong. Out of all of the print advertisements created, this was the only one not selected to be displayed by these two organizations. And despite the initial rejection, Cathay Pacific remained firm on its stance. The same day that Cathay Pacific's advertisement was refused by the Hong Kong MTR and Airport Authority, the gay rights group Big Love Alliance launched a social media campaign in which they encouraged Hong Kong residents to take photos of themselves holding paper prints of the advertisement and standing in front of the metro station or the airport holding this and taking the picture to post on social media. The public was incredibly responsive and they received hundreds of posts, which ended up catching the attention of the Hong Kong MTR. Once it was clear that the public was dissatisfied with this decision, both the MTR and Airport Authority revoked their decisions and ended up displaying the advertisement once more. This example really shows just how much power and influence stakeholders have. Now, I wanted to briefly touch upon the differences between Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China. The Cathay Pacific case study that I just discussed was actually taking place in Hong Kong in May and June of 2019. And according to the Sino-British Joint Declaration of 1997, Hong Kong is considered autonomous from China in all aspects except for defense and foreign affairs. This allows for more freedom in terms of the content featured in advertisements and in other marketing campaigns. Most recently, China has been relaxing its censorship of ads that feature same-sex couples. One example is in January of 2020, when an advertisement for Alibaba and Tmall actually showed a same-sex couple in a Chinese New Year advertisement. Taiwan, which is also known as the Republic of China, is the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage. This legislation was passed in May of 2019, and although not everyone in Taiwan agrees with the legislation, it is certainly an admirable step in making Taiwan a more inclusive place to live. This case study is also a really great example of corporate social responsibility. So for those of us who are not as familiar with the term, corporate social responsibility includes maintaining sustainable business practices, both socially and environmentally. I think typically when we think of sustainability, we're more inclined to think about ways to protect and preserve our environment. But that is only one part of sustainability. Social sustainability incorporates ensuring that businesses are operating ethically and with consideration of the people around them. And because of this, it's really important to note that corporations play a large role as leaders and role models in the business world. This is because businesses are so large that other companies are certainly going to look at their actions in order to receive guidance on how to operate sustainably. And because these large corporations have such a large platform, it only makes sense for them to try to advertise their efforts of sustainability as often as they can. Most large corporations actually publish a CSR report annually. And this report includes statistics, facts, and figures that detail data in terms of human resources, events and community involvement, and short and long-term goals for the company. It's actually a really great way to get a snapshot of the values the company has and the direction that they're moving in terms of their sustainable practices, both socially and environmentally. EVA Air's CSR reports include highlighting involvement with the local community, such as working with the Chang Yun-Fa Foundation, named after Evergreen Corporation founder, which is actually dedicated to multiple welfare and educational initiatives. EVA Air has also been promoting domestic tourism and overseas tourism to Taiwan through the sponsorship of lots of events, such as the 2019 Pingdong Lantern Festival, Taiwan International Balloon Festival, the National Day Galas, and Autumn Harvest Arts Festival, among many others. EVA Air has also sponsored Taiwanese athletes by providing them with plane tickets to alleviate their financial burdens when traveling overseas for competitions, while at the same time letting everyone know that the athletes are from Taiwan, and so is EVA Air. One theory that is particularly relevant to CSR is the stakeholder theory. This theory posits that around the firm there are multiple different stakeholders, primary and secondary stakeholders. Primary stakeholders are considered groups of stakeholders that are more directly involved in the value creation process of the firm. So primary stakeholders would include customers, employees, suppliers, and financiers. Secondary stakeholders are groups that are not engaged directly in the value creating process, but that do have legitimate interests in what the firm does. And secondary stakeholders are important because their actions and decisions also have an impact on the firm and its decisions in the future. But they are considered secondary because their interests are not prioritized as highly as those of primary stakeholders. So some examples of secondary stakeholders are the media, competitors of the firm, and other advocate groups. If you look at the graphic, one important observation to make is that the lines separating the groups are dotted. And this is because it isn't supposed to be a concrete line separating the different tiers. In fact, it's supposed to be very fluid because at any given time, for example, the media may have more influence than suppliers, or at any given time, customers may have more input than employees. So it's really important to keep in mind that how fluid this theory actually is. In July of this year, I actually conducted a survey to better understand Taiwanese Airlines' domestic marketing strategies. This was conducted in Taiwan, so I distributed this among my friends and mutual friends that we had, as well as individuals that they knew that perhaps I didn't. And there were a total of 44 respondents that were interviewed. The survey included questions in both English and Mandarin Chinese to ensure proper comprehension of the questions being posed. So one of the questions that was posed to respondents was, to what extent do airlines have a responsibility to support social causes? And if you take a look at the graphic here, you can see that a majority of the respondents said that it's either important or very important that airlines support social causes. And this is indicated by the green, both the dark and the light green. The yellow section indicates individuals who had a neutral stance, whereas the red section represents respondents who felt it was of low importance. Another very interesting question posed was, in what part of the business process do you find diversity to be most important? And as you can see, the majority of individuals responded with customers, meaning that businesses should do their best to appeal to customers from different backgrounds. So the key reason I wanted to work with EVA Air is because of its strengths. EVA has a clearly defined audience, an emphasis on safety, and a really solid reputation for excellence. In fact, when I was conducting the survey, EVA was the preferred airline among a majority of the respondents. In contrast to some of the regional competitors, EVA Air has not advertised its CSR efforts to the general public as well as it could have. And this lack of advertisement was reflected in the responses of the MTA survey participants, as many reported that they were actually unaware that corporations publish their CSR reports. EVA Air has lots of potential to include more diverse advertisements and to continue its advocacy for diversity within the workplace. The only visible threats identified were its regional competitors, particularly its newest one, Starlux Airlines, which has been creating a lot of buzz, specifically among young people. So next, I want to go ahead and introduce you all to the marketing plan that I have designed. The target audience for this marketing plan is going to be a younger audience between the ages of 25 and 40, living in more urban areas. So these would be areas such as the capital Taipei or the second largest city, Kaohsiung. And in terms of psychographics, this campaign is going to be targeting individuals who travel frequently for either business or leisure purposes. Behaviorally, it's going to be targeting passengers who have flown with EVA Air in the past and who have a really positive image of EVA Air. So the first proposed promotional campaign is titled the Buy Your Side campaign. And this campaign is going to be run by EVA Air directly and will have a heavy focus on highlighting the different types of CSR that EVA Air is currently engaged in. The name Buy Your Side is also going to have a Chinese equivalent, and that is 在你身边, which carries the same meaning. Essentially, the concept behind the name is going to be promoting the idea that EVA Air stands with its stakeholders. And this campaign is actually going to be an extension of a campaign that was previously run by the Taiwan Alliance to Promote Civil Partnership Rights, which is a Taiwan-based nonprofit organization that has dedicated itself to the advancement of rights of the LGBT community in Taiwan. Part of the See You Soon campaign actually highlighted one particular difficulty that a lot of international couples face, and that's being able to see each other in person. Oftentimes, this difficulty stems from expensive airplane tickets. So in order to address this issue and show its support for the couples, EVA may consider sponsoring airline tickets for these individuals. And in order to appeal to consumers that prefer a more narrative approach to advertisements, EVA Air could document the couple's story. So for example, cameras could follow the international partner as he gets ready for the journey, interview him about the experience, and show his reaction when he meets his partner living in Taiwan. Such a campaign would really allow EVA Air to demonstrate its inclusive values and to connect with stakeholders on a more emotional level. It will definitely appeal to customers who particularly care about passenger diversity and inclusion, among other CSR activities. The second campaign is going to be a social media marketing campaign that involves influencers. And working with influencers is really beneficial to both the company and the influencers because the company is going to be able to reach a new audience, and the influencers are likely to gain new followers who did not previously know about them. Influencer marketing is really good for establishing a relationship and credibility with stakeholders. And this is because the format of influencer marketing is a lot more intimate, specifically because influencers are talking to the audience and they're giving their own candid feedback about their different experiences. So this really allows influencers to gain viewers' trust, and the viewers are going to be a lot more likely to take the influencer's word for whether a product or service is positive or negative. The format of delivery for this would be a travel vlog style, which would definitely appeal to consumers who like that narrative style, since it's going to be following along the influencer's journey. And there is also potential down the line to partner with celebrities who had advocated for LGBT rights in the past, such as Erin Yan. But such collaborations would definitely depend on the success of the influencer campaign and the response by the public. So just to kind of circle back and address some of the key research questions, the first one was, what type of marketing styles do Taiwanese stakeholders find most appealing? So I was able to find the answer to this particularly in the literature review as well as through the survey that I conducted. And the answer is that Taiwanese stakeholders are most responsive to narrative style advertisements. These are advertisements that tell a story and that show how the product or service is going to affect them and the people around them when being used. The second one is, what considerations do Taiwanese stakeholders make when selecting an airline to fly with? So one of the most important factors passengers consider when booking their flight is actually business integrity and ethics. And stakeholders feel that airlines should be held accountable for their actions and that their actions should reflect their core values. So in terms of selecting an airline to fly with, it's really important that the airlines are publicly advertising their efforts so that consumers are going to feel more comfortable when the time comes to select an airline to fly with. And finally, are stakeholders ready for such a bold campaign? This is a really bold campaign proposal because such an inclusive campaign has not been done on a scale this large in Taiwan before. And the research and case studies show that stakeholders are ready to see more inclusion and more diversity in advertisements. And the EVA Air is actually a really ideal company to work with because of their positive reputation they've had and because of their solid reputation and excellence. And that actually concludes my presentation. Before I conclude, I just wanted to give a huge thank you to three professors in particular, Dr. Satya Satari, Dr. Hongyi Lee, and Dr. Kay Sanders. Thank you so much for your support all throughout my research journey, throughout the 4 years of my time at Whittier College, and just for supporting me consistently and really helping me make sure that this research project was as comprehensive and as fun and enjoyable to work on as possible. So thank you so much. And also thank you to my friends and family who are currently watching. I really appreciate all of your support all throughout my life. Thank you so much for sticking by me, and I'm so excited to see what the future holds.